Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm here to introduce our speaker for our professional development series on personal branding. You heard a brief discussion about what this session will be about and the gentleman. But allow me to speak about the person that will come here to talk to you, because I know him well and remain impressed and delighted to have a long-standing working friendship with him. But Dr. Damon A. Williams breaks all molds, as you'll hear soon. In the academy, we put you in one or two bins. You're a high, productive scholar, or you may be a high-impact practitioner. He's done them both, and he's done them very well. He's merged them. He solved the riddle. Leaders should lead through empirically grounded data and sound frameworks. One of the best ways to stay in tune to that is to be a generator of new knowledge, a consumer of the best available work. And he, just being who he is, has created, the ideal model that folks like myself who teach programs to prepare practitioners to lead post-secondary institutions, this is what we desire. He just does it because it's who he is. His work ethic, which you'll hear about, is a cornerstone. Because to be that good at all the elements that he's done, you got to put a lot of time in. He's written the seminal books on chief diversity officers. He's written the primer. He's written the whole portfolio you read when you show up day one if you don't know what you're doing as relates to being chief diversity officer. And you're going to hear about two things, I imagine. One, he built a very robust chief diversity officer unit at the University of Wisconsin. But he's also led a large initiative through his chief education officer role at the Boys and Girls Club of America, which for many people, that's your end game. Like you worked your whole life to do that job. You worked your whole life to be the chief diversity officer role. These are all just steps on a ladder toward a pathway to something much bigger. And he'll talk to you about the ingredients that he's used as early as strategizing back in boarding school, his boarding school days. He'll be able to tell you those type of things. You will leave here with a fire and passion for whatever you came here with, because he's contagious in a good way.
I ain't gonna make you sick.
Yeah. Allow me to introduce to you all a good friend of mine, Dr. Damon A. Williams.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's good to see you. We are small but mighty, but we're gonna get it popping up in here for sure. So just stay with me. For those of you who are activating in social media, I am at DAW PhD. I'm always hashtagging strategic diversity leadership and hashtagging inclusive excellence for those who are activating in social media. This is a great space to be in. I've been here for the last 2+ days engaging in the community. We started on Monday doing a policy roundtable, working with leaders and influencers around Toronto around the collective action, solutions to the dilemma, the challenge, the epidemic of black male underachievement. We rolled from there into a community engagement space where last night we were with parents and community members and continued the conversation, because what we know is this: to truly solve the challenges that we face requires an ecosystem mentality. Not a silo mentality, not a singular mentality where we're focused over here, only narrow looking at our research agendas or narrowly looking even at our global context. It requires a broad ecosystem mentality. I am so proud and so thankful to be here today to talk about something that is so very important to me, and is how do you pass on to others what you've learned about how you win. Anybody who knows me, I focus on winning. I didn't come just to show up to be a part of the conversation. I came to set the conversation, stir the drink, and win. And so I'm going to pass on to you some of the lessons I've learned from so many who passed on lessons to me. I spent the last several years, as was just noted, working at the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. In that role, I had the opportunity for the last 4 years to shape the educational achievement youth development agenda for nearly 4 million young people, not only in the U.S., but in 77 locations around the country. The majority of those young persons, underrepresented minorities. The majority of those young persons on free or reduced lunch facing some type of economic vulnerability. So many of them boys of color. So many of them black males. And so inside of that work, I have had this unprecedented opportunity, not just to serve and to lead, but more critically, this unprecedented opportunity to learn. To learn. And one of the things that I want to emphasize for each and every one of you here today, particularly for those of you who are early in your career, never stop learning. Because it's the learning that you amass in the classroom, outside the classroom, through all your experience, that ultimately makes the transformative things that you want to get done possible. So always stay in learning mode. 4,000 clubhouses, all 50 states, doing so much work. As I was hearing the various different conversations, I was hearing the brother who was talking about hip-hop pedagogy, his research in hip-hop pedagogy. I took hip-hop pedagogy and I brought it to thousands of clubhouses. So the question for each of you as you engage in your research is, how does your research really inform practice? How does your work inform policy? How does your work scale? How does your work become more than work that speaks so powerfully to an academic audience? How do you jump your work to speak to the world? Because see, this is the reality of most of us as scholars of color. We didn't come here just to do research. We came here to disrupt. We came here to innovate. We came here to set ripples of change into the world. So that means, how do you not only add great contributions in the scholarly world, but how do you jump your contributions to the real world? I spent my time talking about strengthening program pathways. Strengthening pathways in STEM, creativity, and literacy, in health, wellness, and gender youth development, college access, career exploration, 21st century skill development. Each of those areas, each of those pathways had a center of excellence that led and activated in those areas. Those centers of excellence were capitalized at a level of over $250 million. Meaning we were funded at more than $250 million to do that work over time, working so prominently with local leaders to activate in that work. I stepped away from that platform about 90 days ago now, and I'm really excited for what's next. As I've been moving around the country, engaging in what I refer to as the Inclusive Excellence Tour for Impact. Inside of that, what I'm hoping to do is I want to empower 1 million leaders. I want to empower 5,000 organizations to use, as Dr. Jackson referred to, more evidence-based practice in their work. More evidence-based practice in their work. See, this is the thing. Diversity, equity, and inclusion work, whether you're defining at the K-12 level, the higher education level, the corporate level, the government level, in any sector, in any space, it's a multi-billion-dollar industrial complex that's out there. Multiple billions. But yet so much of the research, so much of the scholarship that individuals have contributed are not being proactively used in the practice. So we're doing all the research over here, and all the practice is happening over here, and so the research is not informing the practice. The strategies that work are not being used, and so we see this continual hamster wheeling and cycling, where we keep cycling back through the same challenges over and over and over again. Those of you in the room who are young scholars, one of the things I would challenge you to do, don't be a gap researcher. Continue to tread the old conversation of the challenge. Be the folks that bring the novel, unique ideas about the solution. Last night I was having a cocktail with a young brother, and he was saying to me, he said, "Dr. Williams, sir, are you familiar with this individual?" And I don't know who the scholar was. This individual, and I'm sure that he's very well known. He's on TV, does all these great things. And he says, "Well, what does he talk about?" He said, "He talks about racism." I said, how many more times do I need to sit down and listen to somebody talk to racism? Not that we don't need to continue to push and ask penetrating research questions in that arena. But where I spend my time, I'm listening to Warren Buffett. I spend my time listening to Jim Collins. I spend my time listening to Simon Sinek. I spend my time looking at Seth Godin. I spend my time thinking about and listening to individuals who are thinking about solutions, even though those solutions may not be in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. Because see, one of the things I want to talk about here today is how innovation happens. Innovation happens not by living where you are. Innovation happens by traveling in new lands and new spaces to learn new things and bringing those things back home. And we're going to talk about that here today. But the first question I have is, what is a brand? What's a brand? Anybody in the room? We got some mics, I believe. Are the mics hot right here? Somebody went to a mic? Anybody want to go to a mic? Tell me what a brand is. What's a brand? Somebody, anybody, please tell me. What's a brand? Yes, sir. If you go to the mic right there.
How the external world perceives you.
How the world perceives you. Ooh, what a response. Anybody else? What is a brand? Anybody else? What is a brand? Yeah, I'm looking at you, brother. What's a brand? Take the microphone back there. Come on now. Educate the group. What's a brand? You got something. You got something.
I don't need to use the mic. A brand is basically how you basically project yourself, how you present yourself to the world, how you sell yourself.
How you present yourself to the world, how you sell yourself. In the room, by show of hands, how many of you have a social media account? By show of hands. Everybody's got an account, so everybody's a brand. Not only are you a brand, but you're a brand that's broadcasting to the world, telling a story. You're broadcasting to the world, not only telling a story, but offering a promise for what you stand for. So the question is, what do you stand for as a brand? Successful brands are more than an image or a logo. Successful brands not only communicate something cognitively, successful brands create a connection emotionally. Successful brands deliver on a promise. Whenever you lace up them Jordans, whether you can jump out the floor or not, you believe you can fly at some level. Successful brands consistently deliver over time. They're not one-hit wonders. The most successful, iconic brands, as soon as you see the Apple logo, you know what it entails. You know it will function at an incredibly high level, and you know it will be beautiful. As soon as you see the Gucci logo, you know what they're trying to convey with that brand. As soon as you see powerful, prominent brands, whether they're material or they are iconically personal, when you see former First Lady Michelle Obama take the mic, you know that there's a brand that's there. There's a promise that's met and kept. And so the question I ask young people, the question I ask leaders at all levels, and last week I was at the National Black NBA executive, talking to executives, talking about pathway to the C-suite. And I talked to them about the same thing. What is your brand? When I go talk to teenagers in urban communities and teenagers in rural communities, I'm asking the same question. What is your brand? And how are you building that brand block by block, foundation step by foundation step to stand for something? Another key theme of successful brands is successful brands associate themselves with other successful brands. They put themselves on that platform. When I am here now at the International Colloquium on Black Male Education, I am on that brand's platform. When I wrote my piece, Inclusive Excellence, with my colleagues, I was on the American Association of Colleges and Universities platform. When I was at the National Black NBA event last week, I was on the National Black NBA platform. So when you're building your brand, when you're thinking about your brand, when you're managing your brand, one of the questions you have to ask is, what platforms are you associating with? LeBron James is on the Nike platform. LeVar Ball said, my boys will create their own platform. But everybody's talking about platform. And so as you are developing your career, no matter where that career is, what major brands are you associated with and what platform are you on? And how are you building that brand constantly over time? Evolving that brand over time. Now, my brand, and that's my beautiful logo there, and it's just a logo. But some of you know the products. Strategic Diversity Leadership is a product. See, when I think about books, when I think about articles, when I think about monographs, when I think about talks, I think about them as scholarly productivity, but I also think about them as brands. So there was a reason this book was authored in a particular way, and it had a look and feel in a particular way, and it was titled in a particular way, because I wanted it to be a brand. I wanted it to have a life. I wanted it to be able to move. Chief Diversity Officer, the same thing. I wanted it to have a life. I wanted it to be able to move. And now, my Inclusive Excellence Tour is a brand. And inside of the books, inside of the lectures, inside of anything that I touch, I wanted to convey the same promise. I wanted to be evidence-based. I wanted to be scholarly rigorous. I want it to not be boring. I want you to read it and it be sticky. So you read my books, I'm talking about The Cheetah and the Wolf, The Perfect Storm, Why Diversity Plans Fail. I want to be punchy. I want to be symbolic. I want to be evocative in the ideas. But then you put underneath that rigorous methodology. But you then push yourself to the next level to write creatively and in ways that are sticky. Because at the end of the day, we're producing too much scholarship that doesn't translate to other arenas and truly create impact because it's boring.
Right.
You have to have multiple different ways that you take your brands to market. Not just your book, not just your article, but where is your essay on the back of diverse issues in higher education? Who's here today? Where is your thought leadership piece that you're writing in an op-ed space or your blog to get your ideas in the world and not just letting your scholarship sit in one place, but how do you translate it in multiple places? Last week, 2 weeks ago, I was not on the platform. I was not working with ACE. I was not working with the NCAA. I was not working with any organization. And I sent a message out into the world. And I said, we're hosting a National Inclusive Excellence Webinar Summit event. A free webinar summit event. And 2,000 people signed up and came to the summit event to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I was on no platform. And what that told me is what Seth Godin, the author of Tribes, refers to, is that there was a group of leaders in the world, what he refers to as a tribe, that was looking for voices that are speaking into them and helping them to pursue what they believe. Not what I believe, but what they believe. And so that tribe came and they very powerfully said, we want to speak into these issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, and change. We want to talk about what it means to be empowered and emboldened to do the work at another level. Now, this is the thing when you're developing your brands. And this is the thing when you're developing your scholarship and going to market with it. Anybody in the room heard of the law of the diffusion of innovation? The law of the diffusion. One hand goes up. Give her some love for knowing the law of diffusion of innovation. Now, what the law of diffusion of innovation is as follows. When you introduce a new idea into a system, into a marketplace, whether that's a scholarly marketplace, that's an institutional marketplace. When I was doing my work at the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, that was a national marketplace. When you introduce an innovative idea into that marketplace, it has to catch hold and be diffused. And so one of the things that we talk about is the first 2.5% of adopters of a new idea are your innovators. Those are your folks that are getting it immediately. So think, the iPhone 10 is coming out. The innovators had figured out how to order the iPhone 10 before anybody knew even the release date. Those are the innovators. The early adopters, those are the individuals that when Best Buy dropped their advertisement about a week and a half ago and said you can pre-order it now, those are the early adopters. They went to go get it then. They signed up to get it then. Then you've got what's referred to as the early majority. The early majority know they're going to get that iPhone 10, but they're not going to get that iPhone 10 until their contract has expired. They're the early majority. Then you've got the late majority. The late majority, well, yeah, I'm going to get it at some point, but I'm probably not going to get it until my iPhone stops working appropriately, because y'all know how they build that technology. It stops working appropriately at some point, and then they go get it. And then the individuals that are the laggards is on some type of rotary phone or something. They might not ever have it. They'll think the flip phone. And so as each of us puts our ideas in the world, each of us is begging the question, where are you at in terms of how your ideas are tipping and creating innovative possibilities? I offer this because we oftentimes think that brands are built overnight. Brands that endure based on a trust that's built foundationally, brick by brick by brick. It's every report, it's every article, it's every interaction, it's every class you teach, it's every lecture you give, it's every interaction that you have that you build your brand. Because when you're a brand and you're managing it and building it, what you know is this: you stand for something in the minds and in the hearts of those that interact with you. You stand for something. If we were to poll the 10 people that are closest to you, what would they say about your brand? You can go back 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and you start polling people about my brand, and they will tell you consistent things. They will tell you I am dogged in my work ethic. They will tell you that I believe in sartorial splendor and I always try to look nice. They will tell you that I am bold, unequivocally to my ambitions, but I am so humble to the way that I approach my work. Be bold in your intentions. Be bold in your ambitions. Be bold in your belief. Because if you don't dream and envision big, then you won't accomplish big dreams. But be so humble in how you approach it. Put the time and the work ethic in. One of the reasons that Professor Jackson and I are such good friends is because we know on the other side of midnight, there's only a couple people doing what we do. We still grind. I hit him up, he'll hit me up. You up? Yeah, I'm up. I'm in the lab. I'm grinding. And so the thing I always challenge young people to do, whether you're advanced in your career or you're beginning in your career, is what's your grind? Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to be doing big things, but what are you putting into it foundationally on a day-to-day basis? I believe that individuals that are truly building their brand permanently are becoming innovators. Innovators. They're not living in convention. They're becoming innovators. So there's a wonderful book written by Hayden and Christensen, Harvard University business faculty, who talk about the idea of innovation. And they asked the question, what makes an innovator, right? So they went out and they did research. And some of the most powerful research begins with the most simple of questions. One of my former faculty members, my dissertation chair, Jerry Gerwin. Jerry Gerwin is now 99 years old. I was his last dissertation student. And you know what he told me? He said, in the current era, he said, we confuse fancy statistics as powerful research. He said, if you ask the right questions and you build the right instrumentation and you have the right methodology, you might not need to use the most aggressive techniques, although you may need to extend it into those techniques at different times. He said, when you ask the right questions, you're in the right space. It might be simple. Hayden and Christensen asked the question, what makes an innovator an innovator? And they went out and they talked to individuals across sector, higher education, K through 12, political, government, not-for-profit, technology, big retail, all different ways that individuals are leading, asking the question, what's an innovator? The first thing that they found thematically in terms of their framework of innovators that I give to you is number one, innovators are always questioning their reality. Why? Why not? What if? How do we do it this way? They're questioning their reality. I am currently booked to go speak at 30 different institutions across the country. I don't go to institutions unless I'm meeting with your president and your executive team. Because I'm in the business of leading change. I'm in the business of asking questions around innovation. So the question first is, are you asking questions? Innovators are not only asking questions, but innovators are also searching out and reapplying solutions. See, that's the thing. We stay here. And when you stay here in convention, you can't innovate. You've got to travel in other spaces. I've got to sit down and listen to the mashup conversation between Coach K and Michael Phelps being interviewed by Charlie Rose because I need to hear something different that I can bring over here. I need to hear the mashup conversation by Warren Buffett and Jay-Z because I need to hear what they're doing and what they're thinking so I can apply those concepts and those ideas over here. I need to not just live in sociology. I need to go over here to anthropology or organizational psychology to learn the theories and the ideas and bring them over here. Then I know that some of you are in doctoral programs and you may not have the full license to be as interdisciplinary as you need to be, but tuck that away in your mindset. Understand that you need to master the canon of something. But at some point, you're going to be able to innovate off of that canon and go in lots of different places. And don't allow yourself to be boxed in the convention of any theory, any disciplinary area. Be focused on solutions and breakthrough results. Innovators understand that if I'm truly going to innovate, I've got to put myself in spaces like this so I can be in the company of other innovators. Don't come to meetings like this or other meetings and stay with the people that you came with. You should follow what I refer to as the rule of 5. 5 great sessions, 10 amazing handouts or resources, and 50 life-changing relationships. Let me say it again. 5 great sessions that speak to your passions as a learner. 10 amazing handouts that you will get and take home with you, and 50 game-changing relationships that you can build and cultivate over time. Because the most powerful treasure that we have in the world is the relationships that we have. The most powerful treasure that we have in the world is the gift of thought partnership with somebody. I was sitting down with a brother. He came over to me. They had seen the brother since I was at the colloquium 3-4 years ago. He said, Dr. Williams, how you doing? I said, I'm doing great. We sitting there talking, what type of work? He said, I'm doing work on DACA. Man, say more. Tell me more about that. And right there in that moment in time, he put me on to some things that I did not know. You should be moving with the powerful learning objective of asking the question, how are you going to learn? But innovators not only learn from others, this is the big thing about innovators. Innovators have a bias towards action and they experiment with new ideas, right? Y'all know what I'm talking about. How many folks y'all know that they just talk and 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 talk about what they're going to do, about what they're planning to do, about their hope. Innovators build. Innovators launch. Innovators figure out what it's going to be and they go there. They figure it out. And they go as fast as they can. And this is the thing about innovators. Once you launch something, you pilot something. Once they figure out it works, the innovators want to scale up. They want to figure out how to make it ubiquitous. They want to figure out how to take it everywhere in the world. Once you figure out something that works, that's the keys to innovation. But just as each of you in this room are scholars, and you know when you come to a theory, you come to an idea, you have to not just take that idea and use the idea, but sometimes you have to extend that knowledge base. What I found was this theory of innovation was not the theory that we needed to innovate in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space where I spend my time and do my scholarship, because it didn't have the 6 characteristics of innovators that must be there as well. You can be doing all these different things and believe in all these different things, but if you're trying to move a diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda, there's a 6th characteristic that must be in place. You must lead with courage. You must lead with courage. Whether you're the students that we're seeing standing up on our campus asking hard questions, whether they're the right questions or not, they're leading with courage. Whether you're the white male that's sitting in a room and begging the question when you hear something off color in that faculty search committee meeting and you raise the question, you're leading with courage. Whether you're LeBron James who stood up and stand out and said what he had to say regarding our president in this country, you're leading with courage. Proving and showing that LeBron James may not just be the greatest basketball player of his era, but indeed he may be the greatest sportsman of his era. Because individuals that are innovating are leading with courage. They cut against the grain. They do what Seth Godin refers to. They poke the box and want to see what comes out on the other side. So as you're building your brand, I challenge you to be innovators. But to be an innovator, you have to have an understanding of what Simon Sinek refers to as the golden circle. The golden circle. See, this is the thing. Everybody knows what they do. Some know how they do it. Individuals that inspire, individuals that truly lead, individuals that innovate, individuals that move the needle know why they do what they do. Not just what you do, not just how you do, but why you do what you do. If we were to go around the room today and ask for each of your why, could you articulate it? Could you put it down on paper? Could you tell someone else? Could you bring a shorty along that was coming behind you and express to them what your why was? If you can't do it, then that means you've got self-reflective work, hard work, asking questions about who you are to be able to express that. And hear me when I say this. The foundation of all knowledge is self-knowledge. Because when you have a powerful understanding of your why, then you know how you will stand up in difficult moments and in difficult challenge situations and lead with courage. We have to understand our whys. Now, when I talk about all these various different theories, all these various different ideas, I try to wrap them all up. And I try to put them in a model. And the model I'm going to share with you is the model that we built for our 21st Century Leadership Program for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. It was a model, though, that I had been working towards and developed a prototype for 10 years before I came to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And the first thing that I believe in terms of this model and providing you with a very clear framework of how to build your brands is your brands begin with why. And when you're talking about why, that means you're asking the question, what are you passionate about? Individuals that have passion never work a day in their life. They just get up and do what they do. So when I'm talking to young people, I'm often asked the question, Dr. Williams, how do you help young people that are off the pathway get on the pathway? Or individuals that are on a pathway but they seem to be floating around, how do you get them locked in? The question begins with why, and the question begins with allowing the young person to tell you what are they passionate about. What are they interested in? And they may not know or be comfortable with the word of passion, but ask them, what's your spark? What makes you happy? What do you enjoy to do? If you start digging back into my background, into my experience when I was a young person, a shorty, a little one, growing up in Dayton, Ohio, on the west side between two crack houses, a crack house on that corner and a crack house on that corner with a tremendous amount of love in the middle, you start asking me what I was passionate about. I was passionate about comic books. I was passionate about heroes. I used to write comic books. I read so many science fiction books that my mother came and asked me, Damon, why are you in the house reading science fiction all the time? I said, Mom, when I read the books, I can see the stories. It's like I'm watching a movie in my head. That's the reason I lecture the way I lecture. That's the reason I write the way I write. It was founded in those passion-driven moments early, and each of us has to find where we're passionate. 75 to 80% of the world gets up and goes and does a job that they are unhappy with. The beauty of being a scholar, the beauty of living a life of the mind, is when you live a life of the mind, it is limitless. It is limitless, because it is bound by the imagination that you bring to that work. I love being a scholar. I love being a researcher. I love being an asker of questions and a seeker of answers, but I also love being someone who's deeply rooted in getting something done. Because for me, to just do the scholarship is not enough for how I want to live my life. When I was a doctoral student at the University of Michigan, there was a legendary faculty member named Dr. Sylvia Hurtado. And Dr. Hurtado is at UCLA now. She is an eminent scholar. She is one of the persons that poured so much into me when I was a very young man, trying to become a scholar at some level. And I'll never forget, she offered me an opportunity to be on her research project. She said, Damon, I want to put you on this Texas A&M University campus climate research project. I think it'd be a good project for you. I said, let me think about it. I thought about it, I came back and I told her no. And the reason I told her no is because I knew that I didn't want to simply be a scholar, I wanted to be a scholar practitioner. And so I walked myself right over to the Office of Academic Multicultural Initiatives, and then I got a job doing administration and practitioner. Because I was already getting the scholarship and the research piece, I wanted some more of the practice piece, so I could find a way to bring it together. Inside of that response, though, she begged the question. She said to me, she said, Damon, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your career? Because Sylvia's a very classic scholar, right? Postdoc, PhD postdoc, assistant, associate, full, get your research center, and she is eminent. If you don't know her, Google her. The sister's all that in a bag of chips. She then said to me, she said, Damon, what do you want to do? What I said to her was, I want to write things that people read. I want to work in an organization, in a context where I'm not a symbolic figurehead and I can get some real things done. And I said, I want to have the opportunity to speak to individuals across the country and tell them what I know and what I've learned. Now, I didn't have quite as crispy a way of saying that at the time because I was a younger man. But I had a very clear sense of my why, and I knew that my why centered on issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, and organizational change because that was my passion. But the thing that became important to extend that passion is to understand how do you establish purposeful goals. See, here's the thing. If you don't have goals, then you don't have a compass. If you don't have goals, then you don't have a rudder. If you don't have goals, then you don't have navigation. If you don't have goals, then your Google Maps doesn't work. You've got to have goals in your life. You've got to have a purpose-driven sense of where you're trying to take this brand. And this is the thing. Oftentimes, we don't know all of where we want to go. Oftentimes, we don't know where the story ends. People are ask me all the time, how did you develop passion? How did you develop this clarity? You develop the clarity by doing. Passion emerges and evolves and clarifies. The camera does this, and it tightens up as you do more of the things that you need to do, and you're asking hard questions. The other piece of this is what Carol Dweck refers to as a growth mindset. Anybody in the room familiar with the concept growth mindset by Carol Dweck? Handful of hands go up. Carol Dweck, Stanford University psychologist. And hear me, young people, when you're giving talks, give attribution to the scholars that you are standing on their work. Don't steal their work. Right. Don't act like that work is your work. Give love to the work. That's what it means to be a real scholar. Because you take the work, you borrow the work, you use the work, you extend the work, you give love to the work, you privilege the work. Carol Dweck, Stanford University psychologist, did amazing research on this idea of mindset. Mindset. How you approach the world. What is the framework you use to interpret the world? One of the things that she talks about is there's two general mindsets that exist. One is referred to as a fixed mindset. The other is referred to as a growth mindset. When you have a fixed fixed mindset, you tend to say statements like this. I'm just not good at math. I'm just not that good a public speaker. Some people just have a gift for being in front of others. That's having a fixed mindset. When you have a growth mindset, then you believe that any deficit, any skill set, for the most part, that you want to develop, ultimately you can develop that over time through hard work, deliberate practice, engagement towards that idea. Now, there's a ceiling on some of this stuff, right? I could have worked really, really hard, but I probably wasn't never going to be able to dunk quite like LeBron James, but, some folks would beg to differ to that, His name is Dave Robinson, But there's some limits to some of this, but for the most part, what we're talking about is how do we have a growth mindset? My young daughter, she's 4 years old, Warner L. Williams, I talk about her all the time, because through the magic of children's development, we can learn so much about ourselves, but we don't pay attention. My young daughter, when she was a youngster moving along, she was trying to learn how to walk, right? Everybody's trying to learn how to walk. At some point, none of us came in this world walking. It's one of the things that makes humans and different than, say, deers or horses. Deers or horses come out, and within a couple seconds, they're already running. Why? Because they don't have to learn things. They're pre-programmed for things. Humans come in the world pre-programmed for one thing and one thing alone, and that's the infinite possibility of developing yourself and learning something. That's all we come into the world programmed with. A horse comes in the world and immediately gets up and trots and runs and moves, right? My daughter was trying to learn how to walk. You know what she did? She get up, she fall down. She get up, she fall down. She get up, she stumble, fall down. She get up, she stumble, and fall down. But the reality is she kept trying, and now she can walk, now she can run, now she can skip, now she can jump. Because she came in the world with a perfect growth mindset. See, this is the thing as people of color. This is the thing as human beings. Oftentimes the world beats that growth mindset out of us. Because over time, as you experience setbacks, when you're told that your speaking style was too preachy, as my master's degree advisor told me at Miami University, when you're told by my master's degree advisor at Miami University, Damon, we can't support you to go on to the PhD program at this particular point. When I applied to McKinsey & Associates to be a summer consultant for them, and I didn't get that opportunity. When I had various different setbacks in my life and I had a chance to put a fixed mindset on me, the question is how do you respond with a growth mindset? Because see, the powerful thing that happens is this. Everybody can envision powerful, growth-oriented things when life is good. The question is, what do you envision when life goes bad? What do you envision for yourself, for your family, for your community, for your organization when it's not going well? How do you weather the storm? How are you gritty and resilient? I will come back to the idea, how do you have a growth mindset? Grit and resilience. The most powerful word written on grit and resilience, the recognized expert, is Angela Duckworth. Angela Duckworth talks about this idea of grittiness. How do you be gritty? So this is the thing. A lot of people talk about being gritty. They don't really understand what it is. I believe in operationalizing the concepts. I don't like to just use words. I like to be able to operationalize what something means. Because then I can activate on it. Then I can teach somebody. Then I can do the thing and not just talk about the thing and make it look like I know something. Angela Duckworth says this when she talks about grit. Angela Duckworth defines grit as follows. It is the perseverance towards goals, long-term goals, over time, irrespective of obstacles. So it's 2x2 framework. It is time and it is perseverance towards goals. 2x2. It is the function of those two things coming together that makes you gritty. So again, I go back to if you don't have purposeful goals, then you're not being gritty. If you're not persevering towards those goals through any and all obstacles, you're not being gritty. People ask me the question, Damon, how are you Associate Vice Chancellor, Vice Provost, Chief Diversity Officer, blah, 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 at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and still wrote 2 incredibly meaningful contributions to the literature? How'd you do that? Because I'm gritty. I'm gritty. Tupac talked about he was the rose that grew through concrete. I didn't grow through concrete, but something just like it. You can't stop my grind. You can't stop my hustle. You know, and that's the thing about it. People are afraid to talk about it, say it, and name it. But when it's so deep inside your spirit, and it's not you talking about it, but it's you doing it each and every day. And that's the thing. The reality of the 21st century and the digital platforms we have, everybody says, I'm a motivational speaker. You know, I'm a life coach. You know, I'm a wellness associate coordinator person to help you with your life. I'm a leader, I'm a scholar, I'm an educator. If you take something out of that motivates you, then God bless. I'm happy it happened. I'm a leader. I'm a scholar. I'm an educator. I'm not trying to go around and be a motivational speaker. You know, you look at people's LinkedIn page, CEO, Vice President of the Nothing for the Nothing motivational speaker. You know, one of my former students, I sent him a hard crackdown because I saw some stuff about he was a motivational speaker. I said, boy, you ain't did nothing substantive since you graduated from this university. Checked him super hard. Didn't check him because I was trying to check him. I checked him because I loved him. I checked him because I'm a deep believer. We don't give sermons, we live sermons. We do it each and every day because when you're a beast, you're a beast. But you want a mind that I've mentored, that I've poured into. And I'm not going to let you be out there talking about you a beast and you ain't living and you ain't walking. Helped you get a job over here, you quit after a year and a half. Helped you get a job over here, you quit after a year. You left that and did some of this and did some of this and did some of this because so many millennials who are coming up in this era want instant gratification. You know, I talk about a lot generations. Boomers, Xers, millennials, centennials. Centennial generation, who's coming next. Born 1997 through to today. The advent of the digital technologies means that these individuals oftentimes believe that they should have it each and every day. Millennials changing and shifting the workplace now. The HR folks going crazy in corporate America talking about the millennials. I'll never forget, I was at the University of Chicago Booth School of Management. At that Booth School of Management, there was a brother that was sitting at the table. We were there honoring one of my dear friends who's the #2 at Black Entertainment Television, Michael D. Armstrong. We were there. He was being honored for an award. My wife, myself, we were there. And the conversation at the table turned to, what do you do? There was an individual at the table, white male, natty glasses, really well dressed, well tailored. He asked me what I did when we do diversity, equity, inclusion work, and I was still at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I was the chief diversity officer. He asked me what I did. You don't quite know what to say sometimes. He asked me what I did. I said, white man, that's why I do diversity work. So I said, I do diversity work. He said, oh, really? Okay. I'm the vice provost, blah, blah, blah. He said, well, you know, my favorite question. Students in the room, anybody in the room, it's the best thing to say when somebody says something, you don't quite know what to say. You just lean in and say, can you say more? The brother asked that to me. He said, say more. Get people to say more. Because then you got to understand other folks. So he asked me, he said, can you say more? So I leaned in. I said more. I said, well, what I do is I help diverse communities access this institution. I help diverse communities be successful. I define diversity broadly. I'm all about preparing the next generation of leaders, irrespective of their background, whether they're majority or minority, to lead in a diverse and global world. That's what I do. He then said to me, oh my gosh, that's so compelling. I didn't know that chief diversity officers existed in the higher education arena. I knew they existed in the corporate side. He then said to me, well, I'm so glad you're doing that work. He said, because your graduates are my students when they come into my organization. He said, because I lead the mergers and acquisition practice for the largest management consulting firm in the country. And so we're talking about mergers and acquisitions. We're talking about how cultures come together, how people come together, how collaboration happens, how teamwork happens. He said, man, I'm also very excited about what you're doing too. He said, because I bet the more that you do that work, the more you help domestic students to become more greedy. He said, because we can't find the domestic-born students that we need. He said, not just because we can't find them with the skill sets we need. He said, because international students are gritty. He said, the internationals are far more gritty than the domestic students. I said, well, we need to go find some of them talented black folks that actually made it through that concrete, because they gritty as all get out. And we talked about that just a little bit. So you got to be gritty. But how do you go about doing that? How do you go about doing that? It's not moving. There we go. A couple things. Each and every one of us has to get building block experiences. Building block experiences, right? Building block experiences. That's coming to conferences. It's having the right type of graduate assistantships. It's getting the right types of leadership roles. It's getting the right types of building block experiences that allow you to access your dreams and move your brand along. When I was at the University of Michigan, I was a program and research associate in the Office of Academic Multicultural Initiatives. There were some very intentional things I was able to get out of that experience. Number one, I had budget authority. I had a 6-figure budget when I was 24 years old. Number two, I was staffing one of the most high-profile committees of the institution, the Martin Luther King Jr. Committee. Number three, I had to write letters and documents that went from my desk to the provost's desk to the president's desk for my programs. Number 4, I had to learn big-time program execution because I was doing events that maybe had security involved, maybe it had media involved. I had graphic design teams, building block experiences. But my building block experiences in that job role weren't all that I learned. Because when I was also at the University of Michigan, I started a party and promotion business. I was throwing parties. I tell folks all the time, I had so much fun in grad school. I had so much fun, folks wondered, how did I graduate in the manner in which I did? Right? What they didn't know was when the party was over at 2:30, me and my friends would go back and we do more work. We do more work. We partied hard, but we played hard. And we worked hard. Right? And so inside of that, what did I learn? I learned how to walk into a room and negotiate. I learned how to lock in a space and negotiate the space. I knew how to set pricing structures. I knew how to create direct marketing campaigns with my email list. Those are all skills I learned there, but I didn't stop there. I had my first consulting project when I was a doctoral student, not even a doctoral candidate, for about $65,000, $70,000. Tell you no lie, I was 26 years old. And this is another part of the manifesto that I've authored that I believe so deeply in. You got to be ready for the moment and crush it always. Let me tell you a little story. So, I was at the University of Michigan. I was a doctoral student. And I had been reached out to by a friend and a colleague of mine who worked in the city of Detroit. They had gotten a grant. The grant was designed to work with children and families to help them develop self-sufficiency and leadership development skills. The woman came to me and said, Damon, I know you used to work with the Children's Defense Fund, work with the Black Community Crusade for Children. I want you to design a leadership development program for the undergraduates so you can train them. I said, absolutely. Absolutely. She then came to me and said, you know, what do you want to do? She was asking me what my price was, what my cost structure was. And I said to her, I'm a servant. You know, I do it for free. I was young. I said, I was a servant. I do it for free. She said, no. She said, no, baby, I know you need money. I know you're in school. You're talented. I want to give you this opportunity. What do you want? And I ain't no dum-dum. So I went back to Michael Nettles, whose office I worked in at the time. Michael had all their proposals. I dug in his proposals, and I figured out what an hourly rate looked like for Michael Nettles, who is one of the eminent social scientists of our time, chief scientist at Educational Testing Services. I looked at it and said, well, if Michael Nettles is $400 an hour, I'm not quite that, but maybe I'm $150 an hour. Right? Act as if until you are. So I wrote a proposal, told her I was $150 an hour. She looked at it and said, this sounds good. So I made $10,000 to be a trainer for a couple days. I was a doctoral student. See, but then I don't stop there. See, I'm a quick learner. I learn fast. She then said to me, she said, Damon, we also need an evaluator, a program evaluator. You know somebody does program evaluation? Can you say more? So she said more to me. Sister started talking about program evaluation. I said, well, I had taken my research methods classes. I had taken my program evaluation classes. I had really smart students who were my friends, who were other doctoral students, and I felt like together we could figure anything out. I said, well, I believe I can do that project for you. Still write a proposal. So I wrote a proposal and I gave it to her for like $40,000. She got the proposal, she looked at it, and she said, wow, this is a little bit beyond what I can handle in terms of my evaluation budget. I can only do maybe $15,000, $20,000. She said, but this is really good, Damon. I think we don't have an evaluator for the overall project. So then she kicked it up to the PI for the overall project. Sat down with the overall PI project, went back, busted out the next version of the proposal, and I asked him $68,000, $69,000. He said yes. I was 26 years old. How many in the room right now have had a $70,000 consulting project? Most of us have not. Because we don't understand our worth. We don't understand how to capitalize our intellectual product. We don't understand that we are builders and creators, that we are personal brands that take those brands to market through multiple channels. So the lesson I just taught you was this. I was getting money for my Rackham Merit Fellowship. I was getting money for my research associate's position. I was getting money for my program associate position. I was getting money for my job that I was doing and throwing my parties. And I was getting money as a consultant. Because there, it was being founded that I was a brand. I was somebody that could go to market in multiple different ways dynamically. I now live my life in such a way that I will never collect a check just from one place. I must have multiple revenue streams. And hear me when I say this, people of color. You need multiple revenue streams because there may come a time in your career where they come for you. Where they come for you. Whether you're the CEO of a company, whether you're an executive, whether you're a director, whether you're an assistant professor that doesn't make tenure, they come for you. It's what we refer to as being twisted in the game. You're twisted in the game when you've done all the right things and you look up and you are being asked to go. The way you persevere through being twisted in the game is you build your model. You know who you are. You build your brand. You work someplace. It's not who you are. It's not your identity in total. But you have that and you understand it when you know who you are, what you stand for in the minds and hearts of others. This woman, Kim Smith. Kim is a friend. She is a muse. She is a mentor. She is a wonderful person in my life. Kim is the head of digital innovation and corporate responsibility for Capgemini Consulting. Kim and I worked together on a massive 7-figure digital innovation project. Kim saw me give a talk a couple years back, and she said to me, she said, Damon, you need to write your leadership manifesto. Your leadership manifesto. Put it on paper. It's on my website, www.drdamonawilliams.com. Yes, shameless plug. You've got the handout right in front of you. Peek that out. It'll help you. You got to have building block experiences. But in addition to the building block experiences, you also must be building out your credentials. Your credentials. Whatever the credential is that you need to access the opportunity, you got to be building it out. But the thing about credentials, and I use that word essentially, is I'm not just saying degrees. Degrees are degrees. Credentialing is a bigger idea. Being a continuous learner is a bigger idea. Being a lifelong learner is a bigger idea. I got my last degree when I left the University of Michigan at 2002. But I have continued to pick up different types of credentials, different types of markers of learning, different types of things that allow me to access the opportunities I want to access. I started thinking this way when I had so many students come into my office and they tell me, I just got to college, I knew I needed to get the degree. But what they didn't understand is the degree was only a part of it. They need to have a mindset of credential building. They need to have a mindset of getting building block experiences. They need to have an understanding that at some point in your life, it's not the experiences you have, it's not the credentials you have. All you have is the relationships are what gets you to where you need to be. The relationships. The relationships are so essential. The relationships are so important. You have to be building relationships. And I'm not talking about collecting cards. Collecting cards is collecting cards. Following somebody on Facebook or LinkedIn is following somebody on Facebook or LinkedIn. You don't have a relationship with them. Millennials in the room, all of us in the room, invest in the relationships. Because this is the thing. There will come a certain point in your career, if you are truly getting breakthrough, it won't be about your building block experiences. It won't be about your credentials. It'll be about your relationships and whether those relationships will allow you to access greater opportunity. One of my mentors, John Matlock, University of Michigan, said this to me one time. He said, Damon, at some point in your career, you're going to need to have people that sign off on you and help you access new opportunity. Relationships. And this is the thing. All of those relationships as African Americans cannot look like other African Americans. As men, it cannot look like just men. As women, it cannot look like just women. You'd have to have a diversity portfolio of relationships that you can call upon in multiple different ways. I have what I refer to as my senior most mentors. These are individuals that are at the highest levels of leadership life. They are C-suite executives, presidents. I might not be able to get to them all the time. Those are my senior mentors, my senior advisors. Then I have others that are my peer mentors. Individuals that are in my generation who are doing great things. And I'm talking to them always. I'm saying, hey, Professor Jackson, Jelanda, what's going on? Da, da, da. I'm saying, hey, this one and that one. I'm asking questions, what's going on? Because I'm trying to learn from my peers. But the thing is this. I was doing that when I was an undergrad. I'm an Alpha, proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. In my chapter, the most fierce conversations that we had was with one another, pushing and stoking one another's fire to greatness, as I know other fraternities and other organizations have done the same. So it's not just building block experiences, it's not just credentials, it's not just relationships, but this other piece too, role modeling. Who are you role modeling? Who are you role modeling? I have always had individuals I role model. I looked at that person, I like their swag. I like how they do what they do. I like how they approach the world. I like the way their books look. I like the way their articles read. I like the way they give talks. There are hundreds of leaders that I have role modeled through the years. And see, this is the thing, when you're really, really a beast, you don't borrow things, you steal things and make it your own. Right? You don't just see somebody who's doing something. You take that thing, you make that thing your thing, and you make it your own thing. But this is the thing. If you haven't seen greatness, you don't know what greatness is. So you have to research greatness. You have to research individuals that move the needle in whatever different spaces. I have an iPod. Yes, I did say an iPod. It is old school. I have an iPod. I have 100 different plays, MP3s on my iPod. It's called Be a Beast Motivation. And inside of that, I've got everything from Les Brown and Anthony Robbins to Jim Collins to Simon Sinek to Arnold Schwarzenegger. People say, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who has accomplished more in their life than Arnold Schwarzenegger? He came into this country with some crazy accent, made himself the human of peak physical perfection, became the greatest bodybuilder the world has ever seen, then doubled down on it and became the biggest movie star in the world. Then doubled down on that and became the governor of the state of California. And inside of that governorship, and a lot of people don't know this, created more after-school programs for urban youth than any governor, maybe not just in the state of California, but in the history of this country. So I got love for Arnold inside of that, right? And one of the things that he talks about in his story, he talks about the idea of how when he first came to this country, they told him he was too big to get into the movies. They said Dustin Hoffman, you know, Al Pacino. It was the little guys that were the sex signals. But then a movie opportunity came along. It was called Conan the Barbarian. And they did a movie about an individual who was at the peak perfection of humanity, physically. And so this is the thing. Oftentimes, preparation meets opportunity, and great things happen. It's one of the reasons why I believe in being ready for the moment always and crushing. When the woman asked me the question, you know somebody who does evaluation? I had preparation, and it was opportunity, and I got the project, and I crushed it. Same thing for each and every one of us. You got to be preparing yourself for those opportunities. To see, this is the thing about opportunity. It may not come around a long time if you don't capitalize on it. You see it the first time, right? You might not get 3 strikes at the ball. You got to make contact the first time the ball comes across the plate. That means you got to be ready for the moment always and crush it. I'll never forget when I was at the American Association of Colleges and Universities, a conference, and I was at the conference, and there was a sister who was the VP of Institutional Renewal, Alma Clayton Pedersen, Dr. Alma Clayton Pedersen. I ran up with Dr. Pedersen. I said, Dr. Pedersen, I said, I love your work. Thank you for your work. It has inspired me so deeply. It's so powerful. I said that to her. She did say to me, well, what's your name? I said, my name is Damon Williams, Assistant Vice Provost, Assistant Chancellor at the University of Connecticut. She said, well, you're pretty young for that role. I said, yeah, I'm 28 years old. She said, wow, okay, well, it's very nice to meet you. We went on our way. 2 years later, I'm back at that same conference, the Diversity and Learning Conference. I rolled up on again. Dr. Pedersen, you remember me? Da, 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 da. Oh, I remember you. How are you doing? I'm doing great. She then said to me, well, let's sit down and have a drink. Let's get to know one another. Building a relationship. I didn't run down the hill. I didn't ask that sister for nothing. I took an interest in who she was, and that's the key to building a relationship. Relationships are not about you. Relationships are about the people you're trying to meet, that you're trying to connect with. How many of you in here have I already asked you who you are, what you all about? Because I want to build a relationship with you, right? Building a relationship. Then she said to me, wow, that's great. She said, we sat down, we started talking. I started talking to her about my research interests, my research agenda, which had yet to be launched. I was interested in diversity, inclusion, and organizational change. Diversity, inclusion, organizational change. She then said to me, well, I got this Ford Foundation grant for $500,000 to look at the future of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the U.S. in a post-Michigan Supreme Court environment. She said, would you like to come to this roundtable discussion and be a part of that discussion? I walked into the discussion, everybody in the room was a full professor or a sitting VP, and then it was me. I was 29 years old. Be ready for the moment, always and crush it. You know what happened next. We going around the room talking, everybody talking about the problem. The problem, inside the problem, and the challenge of the challenge of the challenge, and the challenge with the challenge of the challenge. Conversation was going to bridge to nowhere. I then start talking about change management, strategy, how we get buy-in, how we move culture. I'm not over-talking, I'm just making a contribution. You never know who's walking when you're really making a contribution. You never know who's walking when you really know what you're all about. I made these little statements to her. She then came back a month and a half later and said, Damon, I'm putting together 3 research teams that are going to write these monographs on making excellence inclusive. She then invited me to be a part of the change management team. Full professor and juniors on the team. I was the junior on the change management team. There were 3 teams. We got in a project, and the brother, Joseph Berger, professor at UMass, full professor, really, really well-respected scholar, white man. We got into the project. He said, Damon, your thinking is so clear on this, I'm going to step back and let you be the first author. Right? Be ready for the moment, always crush you. But there's another side of this too. Is how do we use our privilege to benefit and help somebody else along the way? Because for him, that would have just been another publication. For me, that was career-defining moment in my life. He gave up that privilege to let somebody coming through have that opportunity. I came forward in that opportunity. We wrote the piece. The 3 pieces came up. All 3 pieces were being released. One was led by me. The other was led by Estella Ben-Simone. The other was led by Mitchell Chang. Of the 3 pieces, 2, Jeff Milo, not Mitchell Chang. 2 pieces were going to come out and be published. All 3 pieces will be published. Only 2 will be released in print form. And mine was not the one that was released in print form. Mine only got the digital release. So I came out digital like everybody else. But whose went viral? Whose was speaking to the moment? Who's then catapulted a young individual onto the national stage at 29 years old? I am headlining and keynoting at major national meetings. I am going around the country lecturing at institutions. I never forget the first time somebody asked me what was my daily rate for a speech. I didn't have a daily rate. I just made up a number. They said, okay. I said, all right. And every time I put a new publication in the world, every time I did something new in the world, I took a price increase. Right? A price increase. Know your worth. Know your value. Know who you are. Be ready for the moment, always crush it. And so we look back at this model, and we understand that it's having a deep understanding of your passions. It's having clear, purposeful goals. It's leading with a growth mindset, because each and every one of you are going to experience setbacks. It's being gritty and resilient. And it's knowing that at the end of the day, you've got to be leading and developing yourself in 4 dimensions. Building block relationships, credentials, having relationships with individuals, and role modeling. And this is the thing. I built this model to be like a flywheel, and we call it the leadership development flywheel, because it's built off of the musing of Jim Collins' work, the author of Good to Great, who talks about the flywheel of greatness in the corporate context. And one of the things we know about flywheels is flywheels are big and they're hard to move when you're getting them going. The metaphor I used yesterday, and I'll end with the same metaphor here today. How many of you know The Price is Right? By show of hands. The Price is Right. The Price is Right. I know you know The Price is Right. Put your hand. The Price is Right. Right? The Price is Right. In The Price is Right, I'm not talking about the new Price is Right. I'm talking about the old Price is Right with Bob Barker. Bob Barker would say, come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. Right? So somebody comes down, and the next contestant on The Price is Right, he asked that individual to come down. He said, hey, you know, they get up on the stage. He said, hey, now put your hands on the wheel. Y'all know the big wheel. You turn the wheel. You put your hands on the wheel. And inevitably, it's somebody, they'll be small. They'll try to turn the wheel. You know, maybe the individual's name is Susie. He'd say, Susie, now turn the wheel. Susie, turn the wheel. The wheel makes a noise. Dun, dun, dun. He said, now, Susie, you got to really get into it now. Susie puts her hands back on the wheel. Susie turns the wheel again. The wheel goes, dun, 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 dun. Now, he says, now, Susie, you really got to put your back into it. This is the thing. When you're building your flywheel, you're going to try to turn it, and it's just going to go, dun, dun, dun. You're going to take a class, and it's just going to do, dun, dun, dun. You're going to think you know your passion, but it's going to be a misfire. It's just going to go, dun, dun, dun. But then he goes back to Susie and says, Susie, no. Really put your back into it. And Susie, who we then find out was a former, competitive something or another, gets, their legs up under there, and they put their hands on the wheel, and they really turn. And maybe they give it a little bit of more turn, and the wheel goes, that's how life works. That's how life works. People see more and think more is easy, more is struggle, more is every day. More is putting your hands on that wheel and turning that wheel to define and to articulate and to manifest the greatness that rests in each and every one of you into the world, because that's what it means to be a brand. Each and every one of you stands on something incredible, or you would not be here today. Each and every one of you has a chance to have breakthrough, game-changing success. And all of you, I know, because you're here, have the right value system, the work. We need you to be great. I don't need you to be successful. We need you to be great. When you're successful, you make a lot of money. When you're great, you change the world. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much.